Have you ever wondered why some people seem to glide through life's storms with calm, while others are constantly tossed by every wave of emotion? Why do certain thoughts keep returning to haunt you no matter how hard you try to push them away? And what if I told you that ancient Buddhist wisdom holds a counterintuitive secret about handling your emotions that's exactly the opposite of what most people do? Stay with me until the end of this video, because what I'm about to share could fundamentally change how you experience every difficult emotion, every anxious thought, and every moment of inner turmoil for the rest of your life. Before we dive in, if you're interested in discovering practical wisdom for living with more peace and authenticity, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I share insights every week that can transform your inner world. Now, let's begin this journey together. Imagine you're sitting in your living room on a quiet evening. Everything is peaceful until a single thought enters your mind. Maybe it's a worry about tomorrow's presentation at work, or a comment someone made that felt like criticism, or a memory of something embarrassing you did years ago. That thought is like a small spark. Now, here's what happens next, and this is crucial. You have a choice. You can let that spark just be a spark, acknowledge it, and let it fade. Or you can start adding fuel to it. You can start thinking about all the things that could go wrong with that presentation. You can replay that critical comment over and over, adding your own interpretation, building a whole narrative about what that person really thinks of you. You can dive deep into that embarrassing memory, cringing, analyzing every detail, wondering who else remembers it. This is exactly what most of us do, unconsciously, dozens of times every single day. We take a small spark and we build a bonfire. We take a passing thought and we construct an entire drama around it. Buddhism teaches us something profound here. Thoughts and emotions are like seeds. They will only grow if you water them. They will only consume you if you feed them. The problem isn't having difficult thoughts or challenging emotions. The problem is what we do with them once they arrive. Think about the last time you felt angry at someone. Maybe they cut you off in traffic, or a colleague took credit for your idea, or your partner said something thoughtless. That initial flash of anger is natural, it's human, it's okay. But what did you do next? Did you rehearse the confrontation in your mind? Did you imagine all the things you wish you had said or will say? Did you tell the story to multiple people, reliving the anger each time? Did you lie awake at night replaying the scenario? If so, you weren't just experiencing anger, you were feeding it. You were taking that seed and giving it water, sunlight, and fertilizer. And guess what? It grew. It became stronger. It lasted longer than it needed to. The Buddhist approach isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about recognizing them without nourishing them. It's about seeing a thought arise and understanding, this is just a thought. I don't need to invest in it. I don't need to build a story around it. I can acknowledge it and let it pass. This might sound simple, but it's revolutionary, because most of us have spent our entire lives doing the opposite. We've been trained to analyze, to ruminate, to dig deeper into every feeling and thought, as if that's the path to understanding and resolution. But here's what actually happens when you ruminate. You know that feeling when you can't stop thinking about something? When your mind goes in circles, replaying the same scenario over and over, analyzing it from every angle, but never actually reaching any resolution or peace. That's rumination. And it's one of the most energy-draining, peace-destroying mechanisms your mind can engage in. Buddhism recognized this thousands of years ago, long before modern psychology gave it a name. Rumination is like having a washing machine in your head that's stuck on the spin cycle. The same thoughts, the same worries, the same anger, the same regrets going around and around and around. And here's the trap. Rumination feels productive. It feels like you're working on the problem. It feels like if you just think about it enough, you'll find the answer or the resolution. But that's an illusion. Rumination doesn't solve problems. It amplifies them. It takes a difficult situation and makes it unbearable. It takes a painful emotion and makes it chronic. Let me give you a real-life example. You have a disagreement with a friend. They said something that hurt your feelings. Now, you could address it directly with them, have a conversation, clear the air. That would be problem-solving. But instead, you ruminate. You replay what they said dozens of times. You imagine all the reasons why they might have said it. You construct theories about their motivations. You remember other times they've disappointed you. You mentally rehearse confrontations. You imagine ending the friendship. You tell other friends about it, getting their opinions, which just gives you more material to ruminate on. Days pass, maybe weeks. The original incident was a small wound, but the rumination has turned it into a festering infection. Your mental energy is drained, your peace is gone, and the problem? Still not solved. Buddhism teaches a different approach. When a thought arises that invites rumination, you recognize it. Ah, here's that thought again. You don't judge yourself for having it. You don't suppress it. But you also don't feed it. You don't follow it down the rabbit hole. You acknowledge it like you'd acknowledge a cloud passing in the sky. You see it, you note it, and you let it pass. This takes practice. Your mind has been trained for years or decades to ruminate. It will resist this new approach. But every time you catch yourself ruminating and choose to stop, to redirect your attention, to let the thought pass without feeding it, you're building a new neural pathway. You're teaching your mind a different way of operating. And nowhere is this practice more crucial than when dealing with anger. Anger is a fascinating emotion because it's one of the most seductive. It provides a sense of righteousness, of being right, of being wronged. It gives us energy, a burning fuel that makes us feel powerful in the moment. Buddhism doesn't say anger is bad or wrong. It says anger is natural. It's a response to perceived injustice, to boundaries being violated, to pain being inflicted. The Buddha himself spoke about anger, not as something to eliminate, but as something to understand and manage. The problem with anger isn't the initial feeling. It's what happens when we let it take control. Unmanaged anger is like a fire that burns everything it touches, including the person who's angry. There's an old Buddhist saying, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Think about how true this is. When you're consumed by anger at someone, who suffers? Yes, maybe you eventually express that anger and they feel hurt. But in the meantime, and often for much longer, you're the one suffering. You're the one lying awake at night. You're the one with the tight chest and the racing heart. You're the one who can't enjoy the present moment because you're lost in thoughts of revenge or justice or vindication. Buddhism teaches us to feel anger without being dominated by it. To recognize anger when it arises, to understand what triggered it, what boundary was crossed, what pain was activated, but then to not let it drive our actions. To not feed it through rumination and rehearsed confrontations and storytelling. This doesn't mean being passive or accepting mistreatment. It means responding from a place of clarity rather than reacting from a place of rage. It means addressing the situation that caused the anger without being consumed by the emotion itself. Imagine someone insults you in public. The anger flashes immediately. That's natural. But now you have a choice. One path is to let that anger dominate. You snap back with an even worse insult. Or you stay silent but seethe inside, replaying the moment. imagining all the devastating comebacks you could have said, telling everyone the story, feeding the anger until it's a blazing fire. The other path is to feel the anger, acknowledge it, but not be ruled by it. You might still address the person, but from a calmer place. You might say, "That was disrespectful, and I don't appreciate it," without venom, without losing yourself. Or you might choose not to engage at all, recognizing that their words say more about them than about you, and letting the anger arise and pass like a wave. The wave metaphor is powerful here. Emotions are like waves in the ocean. They rise, they peak, they fall. If you can stay present and not fight them, not feed them, they will naturally subside. But if you try to suppress them, or, conversely, if you grab onto them and ride them into a storm, they become much more destructive. The Buddhist practice is to observe the wave, feel it fully, but not become the wave. To maintain that space between the observer and the observed, between your essential self and the temporary emotional state. This brings us to something that causes tremendous suffering in modern life: the fear of judgment. How much of your mental and emotional energy is consumed by worrying about what other people think? How many decisions have you made or not made based on the potential judgment of others? How many times have you censored yourself, held back your authentic expression, dimmed your light, all because you were afraid of criticism, rejection, or ridicule? The fear of judgment is perhaps one of the heaviest chains we carry. It keeps us small, it keeps us performing, it keeps us living someone else's version of a good life rather than discovering our own. Buddhism points to a profound truth. You cannot control what others think of you, and seeking validation from external sources is a path to endless suffering. Because external validation is never enough, and it's never stable. Even if 100 people praise you, you'll fixate on the one who criticized you. Even if you achieve what society calls success, you'll find new standards to worry about meeting. The Buddhist path is toward inner freedom, which includes freedom from the need for others' approval. This doesn't mean being arrogant or dismissive of feedback. It means recognizing that your fundamental worth, your essential value, isn't determined by other people's opinions. It comes from within. It comes from living in alignment with your values, from being authentic, from contributing in ways that are meaningful to you. Think about a time when you wanted to do something. Try something new. Express yourself in a particular way, but you held back because of what people might think. Maybe you wanted to start a business, but worried people would think you were foolish if it failed. Maybe you wanted to pursue a creative passion, but feared being judged as impractical or untalented. Maybe you wanted to speak your truth in a relationship, but worried about being seen as too sensitive or too demanding. In each of these moments, you chose the comfort of conformity over the risk of judgment. And what did it cost you? A piece of your authenticity, a bit of your aliveness, a moment of potential growth or joy. Now, here's a question I want you to really sit with, and I'd love for you to share your answer in the comments below. What's one thing you've been holding back from doing or expressing because you're afraid of what others might think? What would you do differently if you truly didn't care about external judgment? Take a moment with this. Writing it down, even just in a comment, can be the first step toward liberating yourself from that particular chain. Living free from the fear of judgment doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice. But every time you choose authenticity over approval seeking, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you express yourself honestly, even when it's uncomfortable, you prove to yourself that you can survive judgment, and, in fact, that most of the judgment you feared either doesn't come or doesn't matter as much as you thought. The people who truly matter in your life will accept you as you are. The ones who judge harshly reveal more about their own insecurities than about your worth. This understanding connects deeply to perhaps the most profound Buddhist concept we'll explore: detachment. Now, detachment is one of the most misunderstood ideas in Buddhist philosophy. People hear detachment and think it means not caring, being cold, withdrawing from life and relationships. But that's not it at all. Buddhist detachment isn't about caring less. It's about attaching less. It's about loving deeply but not clinging. It's about engaging fully but not trying to control. It's about appreciating beauty but not desperately grasping at it when it inevitably changes. Everything in life is impermanent. This isn't pessimism, it's reality. Relationships change, bodies age, circumstances shift, jobs end, people leave, beauty fades. Even the good moments pass. Suffering comes when we try to freeze reality, to hold on to things as they are, to control outcomes we cannot control. Think about how much anxiety comes from trying to make things permanent that are by nature temporary. You find happiness and immediately start worrying about losing it. You have a good relationship and become anxious about it ending. You achieve success and fear its decline. You have health and dread illness. This isn't living. This is being imprisoned by your attachments. Detachment is the key that unlocks the prison. It doesn't mean you stop loving people or enjoying experiences. It means you love and enjoy without the suffocating grip of attachment. You appreciate the beautiful sunset without needing it to last forever. You cherish your loved ones without trying to control their every choice. You enjoy success without defining your entire identity by it. You experience pleasure without becoming enslaved to seeking it constantly. You feel pain without being destroyed by it. Let me share a powerful example. Imagine you have a beautiful garden. You plant flowers, you water them, you tend them with care and love. An attached approach says, "These flowers must never die. I must keep them exactly as they are. If they wilt or fade, it means I've failed, and I'll be devastated." This approach leads to constant anxiety, to desperate attempts at control, and ultimately to suffering when the inevitable happens and the flowers fade. A detached approach says, "I will care for these flowers with love and attention. I will enjoy their beauty while they bloom. I will appreciate each stage of their growth and decline. And when they fade, I will feel sadness, but I will also understand that this is the nature of life. I will compost them, and I will plant again." See the difference? Detachment doesn't diminish the love or care. It enhances the experience by removing the desperate clinging, the anxiety, the need to control what cannot be controlled. Detachment is actually what allows you to love more deeply, because you're not loving from a place of need and fear, but from a place of openness and appreciation. This applies to every area of life. Your career, work with dedication and passion, but don't attach your entire identity and worth to your professional success. Your relationships, love deeply and show up fully, but don't cling so tightly that you suffocate the other person or yourself. Your possessions, enjoy what you have, but don't define yourself by what you own. Your body, care for it and appreciate it, but don't wage war against its natural aging and changing. Your thoughts and emotions, experience them fully, but don't believe that every thought is truth or every emotion is permanent. Detachment creates space. Space to breathe, space to change, space to experience life as it is rather than as you desperately need it to be. And in that space, there's tremendous freedom. You can take risks because failure doesn't define you. You can open your heart because heartbreak won't destroy you. You can try new things because you're not attached to being seen as competent or perfect. You can speak your truth because you're not attached to everyone agreeing with you. You can age gracefully because you're not attached to your younger appearance. You can face death with equanimity because you're not desperately clinging to this temporary form. Now, practicing detachment doesn't mean you never feel disappointment, sadness, or loss. It means these feelings move through you more cleanly. You feel them, you honor them, but you don't get stuck in them. You don't ruminate endlessly. You don't feed them with stories about how things should be different. You accept what is, even when what is includes pain. And paradoxically, this acceptance often allows the pain to dissipate more quickly than resistance does. There's a beautiful Buddhist parable about two monks walking together. They come to a river where a young woman is standing, unable to cross. One monk picks her up, carries her across, sets her down, and continues walking. Hours later, the other monk says, "I can't believe you touched that woman. We're supposed to avoid contact with women." The first monk replies, "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story illustrates so much of what we've discussed: the rumination, the feeding of thoughts, the attachment to ideas about how things should be, the carrying of burdens long after the moment has passed. How much are you still carrying that you could put down? How many grudges, how many regrets, how many fears, how many needs for approval, how many attempts to control what you cannot control? Buddhism offers a path to putting these burdens down. Not through force, not through suppression, but through understanding. Through seeing clearly how your own mind creates suffering, by feeding certain thoughts, by ruminating, by clinging to anger, by seeking validation externally, by attaching desperately to impermanent things. And through that clear seeing, choice becomes possible. You can choose not to water the seeds of difficult emotions. You can choose to interrupt rumination. You can choose to feel anger without acting from it. You can choose authenticity over approval. You can choose appreciation over desperate attachment. These aren't easy choices, especially at first. Your mind will resist. It's been operating a certain way for a long time. But every single time you make one of these choices, you're training your mind in a new way. You're building new pathways. You're discovering that you have more power over your inner experience than you ever realized. Not power to control everything, but power to choose your relationship with everything. And as you practice these principles, something shifts. Life doesn't necessarily become easier in terms of external circumstances. Challenges still come, loss still happens, difficulties still arise. But you become more resilient, more peaceful, more grounded, less tossed by every wave, more able to maintain your center even in storms. You discover a kind of freedom that doesn't depend on everything going your way. A peace that doesn't require perfect circumstances. A joy that can coexist with difficulty. This is what Buddhism has been pointing to for thousands of years. You might be wondering how to start, how to actually implement these teachings in your daily life when you're dealing with a difficult boss, financial stress, relationship problems, health issues, or any of the 1,000 challenges modern life throws at you. The answer is, start small. Start with awareness. Start noticing when you are feeding a difficult thought. Start catching yourself in the act of rumination. Start observing your anger rather than immediately acting from it. Start questioning whose opinion you're really living for. Start noticing where you're clinging and what it costs you. You don't have to be perfect at this. You don't have to become some idealized version of a calm, detached Buddhist monk. You just have to be a little more aware today than you were yesterday. A little more willing to question your habitual patterns. A little more open to trying a different approach. Over time, these small shifts accumulate, they compound. They transform your inner landscape in ways you couldn't have imagined when you started. Remember, the goal isn't to never feel difficult emotions. The goal is to change your relationship with them. To not be dominated by them. To not feed them unnecessarily. To not let them steal your peace and your authenticity. You can feel sadness without depression. You can feel fear without paralysis. You can feel anger without rage. You can feel desire without craving. You can feel love without possession. This is the freedom Buddhism offers. Before we close, if you found value in this exploration of Buddhist wisdom, please subscribe to the channel. I'm committed to bringing you practical teachings that can genuinely transform how you experience life. And remember to share your reflection in the comments. What are you holding back from because of fear of judgment? Now, the secret I promised at the beginning. You've probably already sensed it through everything we've discussed, but let me make it explicit. The secret isn't a technique or a mantra or a special practice. The secret is this: you already have everything you need for inner peace. You don't need to acquire anything new, achieve anything more, or become someone different. You only need to stop doing the things that disturb your peace. Stop feeding destructive thoughts. Stop ruminating. Stop being ruled by anger. Stop living for others' approval. Stop clinging desperately to what cannot be held. Your natural state, when all this mental turbulence settles, is peace. Not a peace that depends on circumstances, but a peace that is your essential nature. The work isn't adding something. It's subtracting the habits that cover over what's already there. That's the secret. And it's been available to you all along.